Well, I just want to thank everybody for being here. And we'll just we're going to have Andi speaking today. I'm excited about hearing what God has in her heart. And, just the naturally supernatural part of us is going to be really unveiled. So just be encouraged. Be ready to be stretched. And Andi, I've known Andi for some time. Come on up. It's good to give everybody, Andi, a hand here. And God has been so good to Andi. She's a blessing to this house, and we love to bless her. So here you go, Andi.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I know we have a couple of visitors, and so I might have to give just a little bit of a recap on my background for this to work together. But I'm excited today. Who's excited about Jesus today? Anybody? Woo. Okay. Who's really excited about Jesus today? There you go. Whoops. See, I was so excited, I already lost my dancing shoes. Okay, there we go. All right. Well, how many of you have ever danced, whether it was by yourself or with another person, with a group, any time in your life? Awesome. Thank you for being honest. Some of you, when I met Ed, that wasn't really a requirement for marriage. I had 3 things I was looking for, and dancing was sort of a plus. It happened, and he told me that. And I remember him saying, I stopped that when I stopped chemically enhancing my parties. And I said, okay, just stand there. I'll do all the work. Okay, don't worry about it. We can get through this. And 18 years later, almost next week, it's been awesome. But he's been a good sport. I always wanted to be a dancer, something graceful, something beautiful, something wonderful. And for those of you who know my testimony of having been severely abused and trafficked for 17 years of my life, that was not something that I ever thought could happen, because it just never occurred to me that I could be anything like that, especially since I was always called klutz. I was very accident prone, and at the time didn't know there was an actual reason for that until a few years ago, before the hip surgery, the back surgery, the shoulder surgery, and I think there are just a few body parts left hanging on right now, but they discovered Ehlers-Danlos, which is an issue with joints, and that means there's just too much collagen, they're hypermobile. So as a kid, if you remember your growing pains and being active, it wasn't very hard for me to sprain things, but at that time we didn't know. So in my little heart of hearts, I wanted to be something elegant and strong and wonderful and beautiful, and yet here I was, falling downstairs and tripping over things and not able to skate straight. But I did it enthusiastically. I just want you to know that in my defense. So at that time, as Jesus met me on the curb when I was trying to end my life at 5, he also met me in a different way. And I wanted to believe, as I grew in my faith, that I could have this wonderful dance with this God that I was getting to know, with Jesus that I was getting to know. Because every time I saw someone dance, it looked like they were having fun, that they were moving fluidly and with no hitches and glitches. And I always thought that was very magical when that happened. And I was young, and I wanted to be magical. I wanted somebody to feel that way when I was around them, that I was magical to them. And so I was allowed to go to a class when I was very young at a nearby college, and it was international dances for children. And I remembered one dance in particular. It's an Israeli dance called Manavu. And that dance was so simple and so elegant and so beautiful. I remember how I feel even to this day, and I must have been probably 7 or 8 at the time. And I thought, wow, do people really do this? And someone like me could do this dance, and I could give it to Jesus in my heart and in my body. And so that was my first experience with learning how to physically move. And I didn't quite have the spiritual movement down yet, because I had a very blind faith in Jesus as a child, as he was growing me up through all those circumstances. But I wanted to believe that I could dance, because in my heart, I felt Jesus dance with me. Whenever I heard his name, my heart was so excited. It just wanted to jump out of my chest. And so, am I in the right place? Let me go over. I know I move a lot. Anyway, so I wanted to experience that. And because I was in that overachieving, get away from the people that hurt me mode, I went through college very quickly. I squeezed 4 years into 3 because I didn't want to have to pay for it. I went summer, I went Christmas break, and I went 2 semesters because, man, I was getting out of there. But the one elective I did take was a ballet class. And I thought, I just want to touch it. I just want to taste that moment of being graceful and strong. And I had always looked at ballerinas, male and female, as very strong athletes, yet very fluid and very graceful, something I was not. So here I am, the poor kid in the class, dumpy shoes, dumpy clothes. All the other girls had their little tutus and their little shoes and snotty attitudes. And here I am trying to do these moves. And bless the teacher's heart, because she never looked down on me the way the other girls in the class did. But it was tough. And I was just cranking a C before finals, which a C to me was not acceptable. I had a very high GPA, and I thought, I am not going down in this class. I'm going to figure it out. And what I learned was the day of the final, I either had to be all in or all out and take the grade. Jesus was either all or he wasn't. So in my life, it was very black and white. I don't know much about poker, but I know that's one of their philosophies. You're all in or you're all out. So I wanted to be all in. And by the time the teacher came around to me, we had 90 seconds to show her what we had learned that semester, that we could be prima ballerinas. And not only did I pray, God, please let this work, I decided, you know what? It doesn't matter. There's nothing to lose because I'm already getting a C. And if it goes down any further, it won't matter anyway. So in that moment, I chose to believe that I was that prima ballerina on a stage, whether it was a nutcracker or whatever I was doing, I was the female Nureyev. And do you know, she stopped writing halfway through that 90-second final, and she just watched me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I must be in really big trouble because she stopped writing. And when I finished, after she finished directing me, she looked at me and she said, I believed you were a ballerina. You were so graceful. She said, she basically said I never would have believed it if I hadn't seen it. And that has stuck with me my whole life. And the day after, when finals were posted, the grades were posted, which is always a source of humiliation in that class, but I went to the backboard, and don't you know, the grade A students were looking at me like I had done something wrong, like I had robbed a bank or something. They just parted ways, and I thought, oh, wow. Okay, I'm just going to start on the F side and work my way up, because I would have been happy to get a D or a C, but my name wasn't there, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to make me take the class over. And I kept going, A minus. 90 seconds. But it wasn't about the grade, it was about the belief. And as Jesus imprinted that example in my heart, it reminded me that when we have a partner in life, whether it's a friend, a married partner, a teacher-student kind of friendship partner, whatever that is, that we need to trust him or her. And for this discussion, I'm going to be talking about Jesus, so I refer in the male sense. So in that moment, I realized it didn't matter what I looked like. Didn't matter what kind of clothes I had. It didn't matter if I stumbled through my faith or stumbled through my life. He had my back. And in that moment of being all in with him, he showed up. Not just to me, but to everybody watching. And whether they understood it or not. And they didn't know at the time that I had just had 8 stitches in my back because of skin cancer that the college hospital removed. And so even with that, God took broken and he made it beautiful and graceful and strong. And so when we talk about the rhythm of relationship, which is what we're talking about, giving all of that, as my faith grew, I learned to practice the belief that the dance was beautiful and perfect and strong and graceful, because I hadn't really had the experience, but I don't know how else to say it, of God, of Jesus. I knew him. I had a blind faith, and I wanted to know more about him. So if you've ever seen something like Dancing with the Stars, which I watched a few shows years ago, but what I remember is that those dancers, they practice every single day, like 8 to 10 hours a day. That's a lot of work, a lot of sweat, a lot of energy, but they practice and they practice and they practice. So I learned if I practice my faith, if I practiced more, if I made the attempt, and even if I looked a little sloppy or I didn't have the right appearance of knowing what I was talking about, it's what I believed that made the difference in people responding to me and acting with me. But as I grew in my faith, I also made some observations. So, Bill, here's the part where, if you wouldn't mind, can I borrow you for a moment? I promise I won't hurt you. Woohoo, give him a hand. So, in life, all you have to do is stand there and look at the pretty people out there. All right, isn't he doing a great job? This is awesome. So, as I mentioned with Ed, just kind of as an opener, as believers and as people in general, there are certain types. So, for example, there's a type that says, Bill, have we ever danced before? Yeah, no, have you and I ever? Good. Okay. So he's brand new, doesn't even know what's happening yet. But here I am trying to create relationship. And I'm like, Bill, just stand there. I'm going to do all the work, okay? Yeah, you're doing great. Awesome. Okay. So has he really done anything yet? No. Somebody's doing all the work, right? Now, why would somebody be doing all the work? Either in faith or in relationship. Well, God should be the one that covers all that, but as humans, we think sometimes the way to control situations or to control life, to control the dance that we're in, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, we should do all the work, make all the moves, do the choreography, and be superhuman. Okay, so now, as I practice my faith and as I learned, I realized that sometimes you have to say, hey, Bill, would you do me a favor? Could you just move your left foot and your right foot over one step, please? Awesome. Now, could you move back one step, please? Look, he's moving. Woohoo! Isn't that awesome? Now, as he's moving and growing in faith and in life, if I take his hand, okay, Bill, could you step over one more step? Thank you. I'm going to go this way, ta-da, and then we're going to go back. And look what happens when we teach somebody, when they're watching us. Now, you're doing so good. You can be on Dancing with Stars. Thank you. I appreciate it. You can go sit. He did great. That was awesome. Sometimes we need that partner, but we don't trust them. And thankfully, Bill had trust in me that I would not purposely hurt him or embarrass him or humiliate him. But sometimes in our faith, we're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to look like. Shh, hey, Marcia, I got to tell you something. Do you know Jesus? Okay. Oh, good job. Okay, Brandon, hey, I got to tell you something. It's about Jesus, but don't say it too loud because people might think like we're weird, okay? So, of course, they already know I'm crazy, but that's another story. So in our dance, sometimes things start out a little slowly. Sometimes things are a little more fast. There was a time when I could do the salsa and other dances. Now that would be a little challenging without a lot of Tiger Balm. but there are times that God dictates the dance as he should. Jesus is the partner that we can always trust. He will never take us somewhere that he is not able to pull us out. Whether it's picking us up, doing a flip, whatever it takes, he is always there. And I know that because I've had a lot of times in my life when I stumbled through life, and yet he never, ever left. He never criticized me for it. He never said, boy, one's a lot of work. I don't think I can do it. I'm going to move on to somebody else, like D over there, somebody who's easier, who's more fluid. But even when I fell, God would always pick me up. So one of the first things in a partnership, and I do believe Jesus is our partner. You felt him here this morning. He's still here. I mean, the presence is here. That partnership is trust. Now, we may say we trust Jesus, but when it comes down to it, are you really ready to fly up like the Dirty Dancing girl did when she goes off the stage and hopes the guy catches her in the middle of the room? Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. One of the times I remember not too long ago was when I had some liver issues, and I was going into liver failure, and I went to the doctor, and he said, we're going to do some tests, but the mass you have on your liver most likely is cancer. And in that moment, it was an all in or all out moment. And I looked at him very politely and I said, I appreciate what you're saying. It's not lost on me. I said, but you can do your test. I don't believe God has that for me in my life. So I don't believe it's going to show cancer, but go ahead. I'm going to do the process anyway. But when you get those tests back, I am very confident it won't be cancer. I don't know what it'll be, but it won't be cancer. So it was a quiet 3 days, and I, just went through praying, into God, saying, we trust you. You're our partner in our marriage. You're our partner individually. And when the call came, no cancer. And let me tell you, that mass is still there, and every day it reminds me how humble and how grateful I am that I have such a strong partner in life, that I don't have to carry all of this. I did that 4 times with breast cancer as well, and we are still free. So praise God for that, because I trust him with my everything. Sometimes as humans, we forget he can do all of that. But if he can make the big blue sky that spans 7 continents, I'm thinking he can probably handle just about any dance step that comes our way from life. And don't you know that Satan loves to trip us up? The second step in a good dance partner is focus. How many of you ever get distracted besides me? Really? Anybody have a cell phone? Anybody have a computer, a television? Any of you have friends, family? All these things are distractions. So when you're dancing, in order not to fall and hurt yourself, it requires not just practice, but a lot of focus. Our faith dance requires a lot of focus. When we're just like, yeah, God, yeah, Jesus, I got all this stuff going on. Yep, I'll catch you in a few minutes. And off we are running in the rat race. But we don't really have a chance to hear him because we're so busy. We've got earbuds and stuff, chat things, and all kinds of stuff that distract people. Sometimes we're a little upset that things haven't gone the way we'd like them to in our life, whether it's I don't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or I'm not married yet, or I haven't had a baby yet, or I'm not doing great at my job, I don't like my church, whatever it is, it's a distraction. And he's waiting. He's ready. He is ready to partner with you. But we're not ready because we're not focused. We can't see, we can't feel, we can't hear that magical moment when he's like, I'm here. You want to dance? Let me help you. How about we do a slow one, before we get into the quicker ones, because baby usually crawls before they walk. Unless they're super baby, which happens, I've heard, but usually good idea to start crawling and then walk, but either way, it works. Quiet time without driving or being in the shower. That doesn't really count as quiet time because what are you doing? You're driving or being in the shower, washing. It doesn't mean that he doesn't hear you. It doesn't mean that's not good. It just means sometimes you have to set aside that particular time. I really struggle with that because I'm crazy distracted with a lot of things. But Ed and I bought this program, and I'm really working on it. Have a focus for this, a focus for that. Protect your time. Turn everything off. Don't answer the door. Don't answer the phone. Most of it's telemarketing anyway. So, you don't want to listen to that. If they're calling us on a Sunday morning, they're a telemarketer because they should know where we are on Sunday mornings, right? So in that dance, focus is very important because when you come to the hard places in life and you need that lift, who should you be watching? Your partner. Yes, Jesus, absolutely. Because otherwise you're going to have an accident which could break things. I know a lot about broken things. Ed and I have had, people that have tried to interrupt our dance, whether they just hate what we do or who we are, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But we just keep barreling through because we know who our partner is. We know the dance he's given us. And we know that if we continue practicing like this Dancing on Stars people do every day, and we keep working hard, that in the end, it always works out. It always does. Doesn't matter what we wear or what we do. In a perfect world, we would find our rhythm, we'd look great, we'd never have a problem in the world, and everybody would just be enthralled with our very presence, right? I'm kind of glad we don't have a perfect world because that would be kind of boring. But since we're not in a perfect world and we're not perfect people, being more resilient is usually the key to ending up a winner in the dance circle, so to speak. In our faith, being resilient, not letting little things throw us. They can trip us. We might get some bruises. We might even break a bone or two, but guess what? Bones heal. So bruises go away eventually. And it doesn't really matter because God's saying, I'm here. I got you. When I was 9, in front of that window, for the second time, wanted to take my life because of the abuse and the violations and the threats against my life, Jesus held me. I could not get through that window if I tried. Pulled the chair over, tried to side saddle it, could not get out that window. So, God was dancing with me even in the darkest hour. I may not have been doing so well in the dance, but he never let me go. A good partner has your back. A good partner never lets you go so far that you can't come back. And sometimes when life presses in on us, it's hard to remember that that's how good God is. And in theory, I thought I had it all worked out. But then there are those sweet moments, things where, oh, this is good. It's nice. It's easy. It's not just comfortable. It's joyful. It's a joyful dance. One of the visions that I have had since coming here, actually, maybe first year I was here, is a vision of a banquet room, probably maybe in Esther's time. A little bit smaller than this, but everyone seated there is a special guest, and they're eating and they're laughing and they're enjoying the presence of the main attraction, Jesus, who is sitting over to the right, kind of between Marcia and Sarah, on a little higher chair. And he's just enjoying the fact that everyone else is enjoying the banquet and the music and whatever the celebration was for. And in this vision, I walk in and I'm going over saying, hey, guys, how's the food? Everything okay? Need anything? Awesome. This is great. Do you like the music? Isn't it wonderful that Penny's here? This is fantastic. And as I make my way over, I catch his sparkling eyes. And I look at him, and he looks at me with this huge smile. And as I kind of bow in honor for him, he gets closer to the he moves himself forward in the chair, and I know exactly what he's going to do because I felt it in my heart first. He extended his hand and he said, dance with me. And it was a dance of two partners who fully trusted and engaged and enjoyed each other's presence. Two partners that celebrated the one, yet he shared it as equally with me. He wasn't afraid to share all that he was with who I was. And I'm presuming we're in heaven because clearly that hasn't happened yet. But, but the same thing in our work, in our singleness, when we have no partner, in our advancing age when our partners are older, in our younger age when we're just getting started, in our infancy. Every season of our life is a dance. And in the Bible, it talks about dancing, as a celebration, but every season in our life. Sometimes the dance is more complicated and we feel a little frustrated. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that one. That happened recently when I went for a follow-up on the left shoulder and the surgeon said, by the way, your right shoulder's completely torn as well. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I can do this. I cannot do another surgery. Abba, 4 surgeries in 2 years or less, that would be too much. They reconstructed this shoulder. I need this shoulder to not need that because I don't think I can do it again. And and this was still not a working arm. But God is so good. He let me have my moment of frustration. He let me stomp my feet and say, I'm not doing 8 hours of working out today. I am not doing it. I love you, but I'm not doing this. I don't know how I can. And so after we got through that, another 2 weeks went by, and the surgeon just Friday said, you have some time, and that's all we need for a creative miracle, right? Because that tear is God's problem. And he's my partner. He knows I can't do everything I need to do in life without 2 good shoulders, or at least not the way I'd like to. And I expect my God to want to give me the best. I expect my God, my Jesus, my Lord and Savior, want me to be everything, the best I can possibly be. Now, if something happens, like the surgeon said, if it tears worse, we have a problem. But, let's see what happens. When you can't take it anymore, you come back. Okay, I can do that because I can go a long way. I got a good partner, I got good support, and I've got good physical therapists. They're almost family now after 2 years. So sometimes we need a little help, which, thank you, is a good point. Physical therapy helped me move and recover. Sometimes we need the fellowship of others to help us move and recover in our faith dance. Our faith dance is a work in progress every moment of every day, in the day season and the night season. Ever since we started talking about dreams, man, I have been slaughtered the last 4 nights with dreams. I don't remember all of them, but I know something's going on. I like, woohoo, let's go, Lord. Whatever it is, I'm in for the ride because you've never failed me. Whenever I needed you to step for me or to step around me or to lift me or to make me feel that I was decent enough to dance with you, he was there. He waits. And men, it's for you too. It's not just women. It's my perspective. But guys, you are magnificent dancers in life. The Lord has assigned you the privilege of supporting and lifting others in a way that we might not be able to do as girls, okay? And it is so important for you to give that, even when you're uncomfortable. I am so proud of my husband because he did something that was way out of his comfort zone last week. He did a podcast about being a father to the fatherless with Linda Brightman. Yes, very nice job. And Linda was so sweet and so tender, just like the Lord, just a good partner leading him along in that interview, which I know Pastor Mike sent out to everybody by email. And being the male voice, being that dancer that can do things that maybe I can't do in a way that honors God and reflects him, showing up. With the kids we rescued, they have nobody showing up. There's no dad involved. They barely have a mom, if they have one, who's worth having. And that's just the way it is. That's why they're on the street. But when we extend ourselves, like I showed you with Bill, who had never danced with me, didn't know me, and we help take the hand of somebody who needs to know Jesus, as a partner that will never fail and never leave them, it's important that we reach out. And because he's reaching to us. And that's how we all carry each other through the dances of life, so to speak, the seasons of life. There's a rhythm to relationship. In the tangible, it's teacher to student. It's mom to daughter, or mom to son, or dad to daughter, or husband to wife, or girlfriend to boyfriend, or single person to another single person, or somebody who's not physically well to someone who is physically well. There's all kinds of partnerships, and sometimes the rhythm is rocky, and it takes a little while to get some traction, but because Jesus is our ultimate partner, he shows us how to get through those potholes and get through wearing uncomfortable shoes. It's been a while since I've been off the floor, but I'm learning to walk in shoes that have a heel again, and it's like, wow. Please, God, don't let me trip and fall on my face. But they're more comfortable now because I practice. I practice my balance. I have to work really hard. But when I speak publicly, most of the time, the podiums, there's like a head and a podium. There's nothing else. It's just this talking head. So flats are really becoming a problem, so I had to do something. It's like, wow, where is she? Oh, I see something moving. At any rate, so the rhythm in life should always be dictated by Jesus, but even when we get off course. Have you ever heard a piece of music played improperly and there's a sour note? Or somebody who's singing joyfully but maybe not on key, which is okay. When that happens, God sees it as a blessing because guess what he does? He just leans in more to us to say, you know what? Let's do that step again. Here, let me show you another way to make this happen. Let me show you a smoother way, to do this, maneuver through life. I have had 45 years of business experience, and I've seen a lot of things, as I'm sure many of you have seen. Not always good. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But in navigating politics and business and the male versus female, especially in the 80s and 90s, all of those things, God was always there. He was literally not only a step behind or a step ahead, he was behind. He was on the side. He never, never, never let me fall too far or get too banged up if I did trip. He understood. She's learning. She's my kid. You're my kid. I'm going to help you with this. But you have to trust me. And I focus. Because if you give me just a little more focus, just a little bit more time out of your day, we can do some magical stuff. I remember a huge piece of art that somebody had a long time ago. And on their wall, it was Nureyev, the most probably famous Russian ballet dancer. And the artist had done 3 different variations. So he started with a lighter charcoal kind of looking sketch on a gold background, and then he shadowed it with a slightly darker, and the third one was all in, man. You could see the muscles in his calves and the arm, all of it. It was magnificent. I looked at that painting the first time, and I must have sat there for 2 hours watching the entire ballet. And I like all kinds of dance, but that movement was so impacting. I wondered, what do people see in my dance? What do people see when I'm dancing with Jesus? What do they see when I'm not feeling like dancing? Would they stop and want to see the rest of the story as a witness? Or would they be like, oh, well, that was nice, but, no big deal. I never want to be no big deal. I know it's a double negative, and I apologize to English teachers everywhere, but I never want to be no big deal when it comes to Jesus, because heaven is in our heart, as we sang today and as we spoke today. Heaven is in our heart. Heaven must come from the heart into our walk in life, into the dance of life. If ever I am a piece of art, I want people to want to stay and find out, wow, who created that? Who painted that? Who wrote about her? I want Jesus to always be the author, the artist, the choreographer, the dance partner of a lifetime, and he is. Sometimes dancers get tired. Anybody here ever get tired? Just asking. Except maybe Don. He can dance with a walker, man. I mean, he just always, yes, you, buddy. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I remember shortly before I met Ed that I think it was just about a year. And I had had some heart troubles that hadn't really been diagnosed. It's a birth defect, and I was having a lot of trouble with it. And I was single. I was in the middle of a horrible divorce. I was broke, even though I was a senior executive for a resort company. I barely had enough food to eat, for the month. And then it happened. And the heart surgeon was such a snot and so arrogant. He said, well, you're just stressed out. You're a professional and you're divorced and all this. It's no big deal. Until I landed on the floor in the Eagle Crest office because I couldn't breathe. And I was waking up at night with 200 heartbeats a minute just from sleeping. And so there is a problem. And he didn't believe that I could count that high. And so, oh yeah. The Andy today might have handled things a little differently, but at that time I just accepted it and said, okay. So he sent me to Portland. They did some more tests, and the bottom line was I could be on drugs for life, or I could go have this fairly new procedure, which is now very common, catheter ablations, and they can go through your arteries and do things with the heart. And so the person that was best at this, hadn't lost anybody yet in 10 years, was in Portland. And he sent me back home and said, I can't help you. And I'm like, wait. Okay, Mr. Arrogant over here said, you could fix me. And I'm thinking, Lord, okay, all right, I've got to calm down. You're my partner. How are we going to get through this? Okay, if I can't even wake up without the emergency people showing up. And so what the doctor in Portland neglected to say was, your malfunction is just left of center of heart. Our success rate is 50% less when it's that close to the center of the heart because it's hard to get to. And I went home by myself, on my knees, face down. I thought, Lord, you know what? We have come a long way together. We have been dancing through some hard stuff. But if this is what you have for me, I will do it. You can put your thumbprint on my heart. Okay? And if I wake up here or I wake up in heaven, I'm okay because there's anybody else that cares anyway. That's where I was at in life. I was broke. I was betrayed. I had all these things going on, and now I needed heart surgery. And the paper they have you sign says, you may have a stroke. We may have to cut your chest open. We may have to do all this stuff because, of course, it's in the fine print, right? And I don't think he expected me to actually write out 30 questions about that paper, but I did because we are detailed. And as I went up there, I had no family. I had no safe friends. I paid 2 people to drive me up to Portland and to stay in a hotel room and get me through the surgery and bring me home. And when it was all said and done that first week, my heart beat so slowly I thought I was going to die because I couldn't feel it. I was like, oh my gosh, they did something wrong, but it's the same heartbeat Ed has. It's very slow because he's very healthy. And that's one of the reasons I love hearing his heartbeat, because it reminds me not every dance has to be fast and ferocious in life. We don't have to put the pedal to the metal. We don't have to work the hamsters over to, keep moving us forward and forward and forward. Sometimes the best dance is just a slow one, when you're just standing there and you're just embracing the love of your life, Jesus Christ. If you're married, your spouse. And that slowness, that rest is a refreshing. And I think that's why it's so painful sometimes when we lose those partners, when we lose our children. But it's only because God has another dance He wants to take with you, if we let Him. It's a new normal. It's a different dance, but it doesn't mean it won't be as spectacular. It'll just be spectacular in a different way. When I came back, I knew God had put his thumbprint on my heart because the surgeon was so excited. He had never gotten to something that fast and been able to shut it down that quickly. Even the nursing staff was amazed that he got to it. Now, because of the kind of birth defect it is, you can still have other pathways that malfunction. They kind of forgot to mention that to me, but the third time I ended up in ER, the doctor said, Andi, you can have other pathways malfunction. So I told my dance partner, I said, I would like to not have that happen again, please. Could we do something different? Amen. And here we are, because it hasn't happened. But sometimes we will be reminded, if you fall and stumble, you probably remember where you fell and stumbled. So stumbling is not necessarily a bad thing in dancing. Sometimes it's how we learn. So if you have stumbled or if you are feeling stuck, don't worry about it. Just keep leaning into your partner, Jesus, because with him, he's going to take care of that. Oh, you know what? She keeps getting stuck over here. Hey, how about we try this, right? How about I send her Pam as a friend? How about I bring her to this church, or I introduce her to these ladies, or whatever it is, or I have her ask Bill to be her object lesson for the day, whatever it is that supports the dance. And as a church, we corporately dance with Jesus. We corporately honor the Father with how we represent him. So I guess my encouragement is that we don't have to step perfectly. We have to trust perfectly, and we have to focus. When I was in LA and San Diego last weekend to do some filming, partly for Beulah's Place, partly for the book, partly for other things that God has for my life, the film crew, we had so many attacks on me getting there and also the crew. Just days before the filming, and these are Emmy Award-winning camera people, directors, producers that were donating their time basically to do this one-day shoot on Sunday. A woman opened fire in the middle of a crowd, and the whole crew was there because they were filming the event that the woman opened fire in. Just 2 days before our plane was to leave. Before that, we had an event canceled that I was going down to speak at because that woman's dance had been severely interrupted by divorce, and she was not handling it as well, which is understandable, but it caused some issues. There were so many things going against that trip, but the one thing that was going for me was Jesus, because he made it possible to have a travel buddy since Ed couldn't go with me that time. He made the tickets and the cost and everything doable with things and resources I hadn't even considered. So when the Lord wants a dance to work, he will make it work. And in that day, he showed up big time, because most of that crew either doesn't know Jesus or they were agnostic, which, as I say, they're just afraid to know him because maybe they've been hurt. And in the section about faith, which we filmed, when the producer's eyes welled up, when I told him how I came to know Jesus as a 5-year-old waiting to kill myself, when the camera people were done, they went and said, we're only going to charge like half rate, which is like nothing because they'd already discounted their things, and the producer paid for that. And the camera person said, anything Andi needs or her kids that they rescue until she dies is free. They were so impacted because Jesus showed up. Here I am thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's going to happen yet. But I do know when I invite Holy Spirit to show up and I invite Jesus to be there, he shows up. And so I praise God for that moment. If the whole trip was worth it for that moment, I don't know what he'll do with those dance steps in their lives, but I know we were spot on when he and I were dancing. So I encourage you all to look for the dance, to enjoy it, to have joy. And if you're in a spot where it's not too joyous, then lean into the Lord and say, can we change the tempo? Can we have a different dance pattern? Arthur Murray, something, whatever it takes. But I'm remedial. Help me out. And I mean that in all sincerity. But I also, you have to have a sense of humor because most people aren't Nureyev. Most people aren't professional dancers. So all of us are going to stumble into each other at one point or another. But the great thing is, to heaven, it's beautiful. You guys are beautiful. I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for letting me share again. And may God bless each and every one of you with beautiful steps this week.